pages, if they're going to weigh the 3-day rule, then there is not a single member of Congress who can physically read it, unless they're a speed reader, to actually vote on a bill that will increase our spending and to the tune of almost $1.3 trillion.
Got, 24 hours to go through 200 pages. I mean, this is so tragic. This is such, and I know the House did our job, but we shouldn't have allowed the Senate to drag us into this disaster for the American people. Shannon, it's immoral for this generation to say, we can't control our spending, so we're going to put all of this $1.3 trillion in yet another spending bill for 2018, and you'll have to pay it along the way somewhere.
We're moving toward completing an omnibus appropriation bill, which will fill in the blanks for the significant increase in defense spending that we were able to achieve in the CAPS bill. I think it's important for the country and something that I hope will convince the majority of my colleagues to vote for the omnibus of time to take a look at it and see what's in it.
Let me tell you what's at stake. The omnibus follows through, as you know, on the bipartisan budget deal we struck in February. And for the first time in a long time, will robustly fund our military and provide substantial investments in our middle class. For too long, the arbitrary and pointless sequester caps held back federal investments, much-needed investments in jobs and scientific research, in healthcare, in education, in infrastructure. They also handicapped our military and prevented long-term planning at the Pentagon. The budget deal paved the way to do away with the harmful caps. And now the omnibus will put the nail in the coffin. And so I believe that in the end, it'll be a fair compromise that will be very helpful to the long-neglected middle class when it comes to budgets, the long-neglected working people of our country who previous budgets seemed to pass over. This budget is focused right on them because of the efforts of these people and my entire cause.
It's always been a problem for our country. They get together and they create a series of documents that nobody's been able to read because it was just done. You tell me who can read that quickly. It takes a long time to read it. For the last 8 years, deep defense cuts have undermined our national security. My highest duty is to keep America safe. Nothing more important. The omnibus bill reverses this dangerous defense. But we have tremendous opposition to creating really what will be by far the strongest military that we've ever had. We've had that from the Democrats. So if we take something for the military, they want something for, in many cases, things that are really a wasted sum of money. And it's not right, and it's very bad for our country. And we wanted to include DACA in this bill. The Democrats would not do it. They would not do it. To prevent the omnibus situation from ever happening again, I'm calling on Congress to give me a line item veto for all government spending bills, and the Senate must end. They must end the filibuster rule and get down to work.
Look, how do you see this getting?
The offers they gave us, the one official offer from the president was sort of off the table right when they offered it. It was so biased. And so we're going to keep fighting and trying. The courts have given something of a reprieve, but there are going to be lots of opportunities for us to try and help the DACA kids. Right now, the president, as he did a few weeks ago, is standing in the way.
To read into it, but he says we have a responsibility to protect your data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you. I've been working to understand exactly what happened and how to make sure this doesn't happen again. 2014, they announced they were changing the platform to limit the data that apps could access. 2015, and I'm summarizing here, he says they learned from journalists at The Guardian in the UK that Kogan had shared data from his app with Cambridge Analytica. saying it was against the policies, so they banned Kogan's app from the platform and demanded that Kogan and Cambridge Analytica formally certify they deleted all improperly acquired data. And then they say last week, they learned from The Guardian, The New York Times, and Channel 4 that Cambridge Analytica may not have deleted that data. Now he outlines what they're going to do next, saying, first, we will investigate all apps that had access to large amounts of information before we changed our platform to dramatically reduce data access in 2014, and we will conduct a full audit of any app with suspicious activity. Second, they're going to restrict developers' data access even further to prevent other kinds of abuses. That means removing developers' access to your data if you haven't used their apps in 3 months. Third, he says, we want to make sure you understand which apps you've allowed to access your data. In the next month, we will show everyone a tool at the top of your newsfeed with the apps you've used and an easy way to revoke those apps' permission to your data.
They asked me would I like to debate this. I said no. I said we're in high school. I take you behind the gym and beat the hell out of them. The guy who talked that way was usually the fattest, ugliest SOB in the room.
Well, look, I agree with the president's lawyers that Bob Mueller should be allowed to finish his job. I think it was an excellent appointment. I think he will lead, he will go wherever the facts lead him. And I think he will have great credibility with the American people when he reaches the conclusion of this investigation. So I have a lot of confidence in it. I have a lot of confidence in it.
First, before I get into the substance of the omnibus, I just heard what Senator McConnell said about Mueller. I want to salute his statesmanship. That was the right thing to do, and I certainly hope President Trump is listening.
Donald Trump has moved to impose around $60 billion worth of tariffs on Chinese goods in a bid to counter what he calls unfair competition. The U.S. president described the measure as reciprocal action to bring down its $375 billion goods trade deficit with Beijing.
In response to U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum that went into effect today, China is now proposing its own tariffs on more than 100 U.S. products. These include fresh fruit, nuts, wine, steel pipe, as well as pork and recycled aluminum. Now, these total about $3 billion. Those U.S. goods would become more expensive here in China. That could cause American farmers and companies to lose business.
But we have a trade deficit, depending on the way you calculate, of $504 billion. Now, some people would say it's really $375 billion. We have a tremendous intellectual property theft situation going on, which likewise is hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well, typically in this type of, what is a potential tit-for-tat trade war, as Kristen just suggested, you could see higher prices for imported goods. You could see a retaliatory move by China, whether it's to block U.S. goods from going into their country, or they could threaten to sell some of the U.S. Treasury bond holdings, drive up interest rates, drive down the dollar. We don't know exactly, although that would be somewhat self-defeating, but we still don't know exactly how they will respond.
Gun rights advocates believe the answer is more firepower, not less.
We protect our president with guns. We protect our congressmen with guns. We protect banks with guns. But when it comes to schools, all we do is put up a sign that says gun-free zone, and it's not working.
Plenty of lawmakers agree, but today these marchers are hoping to convince them otherwise.
On the streets of Washington, D.C., crowds swelled and voices rose in unison.
No one could comprehend the devastating aftermath or how far this would reach or where this would go. For those who still can't comprehend because they refuse to, I'll tell you where it went. Right into the ground, 6 feet